pterygopalatine fossa under these headings. The pterygopalatine fossa will cover all the location, boundary, communication and its contents, the pterygopalatine ganglion, its roots, branches and all the connections, and the maxillary nerve. So starting with the pterygopalatine fossa first. The pterygopalatine fossa will look into the location first. You can see this green colored area. This is the area of pterygopalatine fossa. If you look into the shape of this pterygopalatine fossa, you can compare it with the pyramidal structure in such a way that the base is superiorly placed and the apex of this pyramid is inferiorly placed. Now let's see this structure in an enlarged view. So if you see the anatomy of this pterygopalatine fossa, as it's a pyramidal space, and the space is behind and below the apex of the orbit. So in the previous class, we had seen the orbit. So this was the orbital cavity and the apex of orbit was somewhere here, which was the optic canal. So below and behind this apex of the orbit and posterior to this bone, which is this bone, this is the maxilla bone. So posterior to this maxilla bone and onto the lateral side of the skull, this pyramidal space is called as the pterygopalatine fossa. It is between the lateral to medial. If we see, it is between the infratemporal fossa. If we see, this is the temporal region. So this below it, this is the infratemporal region. So it lateral to medial, it is between the infratemporal region or the infratemporal fossa, which is laterally, and the nasopharynx and the nasal cavity medially. So this is the location of a pterygopalatine fossa. This is a very small space and you have to really look into this space when you are looking into the skull. So this location is quite important because you have to look for these parameters, that is just behind the apex of the orbit, below and behind the apex of the orbit, behind the maxilla bone, and just medial to the infratemporal fossa. Now coming on to the skeletal framework of the pterygopalatine fossa. So I've just talked about this bone. This is the maxilla bone. So it is a space which is wedged between three bones. Those three bones are in the front. This is bone, which is the maxilla. Behind this is the sphenoid bone. This is a sphenoid bone. It's greater wing and the pterygoid plates. And in the medial part, this is the palatine bone. So these are the three bones. Wedged between them is the pterygopalatine fossa. If we look into the next diagram, this is the detailed view of the pterygopalatine fossa. So we can see that this is the area of the orbit. So you can see this fissure that you had already seen in the earlier class as well. This is that inferior orbital fissure. So through this inferior orbital fissure, this pterygopalatine fossa is communicating with the orbit. So there are many communications like these foramina, small foramina in its medial wall, posterior wall. So we'll come to it gradually. So first we should know the skeletal framework of the pterygopalatine fossa. So now if we look into the skeletal framework in some minute details, then let's see over it again. This is a dissected area through the skull bones. So now this is the anterior, this is the posterior aspect. So over here, this yellow part, this is the maxilla bone. So this is the maxilla bone which has been cut. So you can see the maxillary sinus over here. Behind it, you can see this is the sphenoid bone. So this will be the body of the sphenoid. Superiorly, this will be the body of sphenoid. Over here, this is the body of sphenoid. And below it, what are these? These are the pterygoid plates. So this is the pterygoid plate. So fossa is right here. This is a very small pyramidal space with the base superiorly and the apex inferiorly. So we can see that this maxilla bone, this maxillary sinus is anteriorly placed. The pterygoid plates are posteriorly placed. And what is there in superior plane? Superior plane may you have the body of sphenoid, the undersurface of the body of sphenoid. There is one more bone, that is the palatine bone. This blue bone that you can see, so you see over here, this is the palatine bone. So this is the orbital and the sphenoid processes of the plates of the palatine bone. And this is this blue portion. You can see the portion of the palatine bone is coming over here and fusing with the maxilla bone. So this is limiting the inferior extent of the pterygopalatine fossa. So this small space in this picture and this space, small space in this picture, this is the pterygopalatine fossa, and you have to look for this fossa in between the maxilla bone, the sphenoid bone, and the palatine bone. Now, with that much detailed skeletal framework of pterygopalatine fossa, now let's come to the boundaries of the pterygopalatine fossa. So now in this picture, this is the anterior, posterior, superior, and the inferior view. The same three bone skeletal framework that we had seen: the maxilla bone, the sphenoid bone, the greater wing of sphenoid, the pterygoid plates of the sphenoid bone, and the body of the sphenoid bone superiorly. And this blue bone is the palatine bone. So if we remember these three bones, now we will be able to do the boundaries of pterygopalatine fossa with the same reference point of this earlier picture that we had seen. So we can see what is boundary, anterior boundary of this pterygopalatine fossa, this pyramidal small space. Anterior boundary will be the posterior aspect of the maxilla bone. So the posterior surface of the maxilla will form its anterior boundary. Now look into the what is there posteriorly. If you see what is there posteriorly, these are the pterygoid plates. And what is the pterygoid? This is the lateral pterygoid plate, and the two lateral and the medial pterygoid plate fuse at the pterygoid process. So posteriorly you have the root of the pterygoid process. So root of the pterygoid process with the adjoining surfaces of the greater wing of sphenoid, they will come posteriorly. So this will make the posterior wall of pterygopalatine fossa. Now what's there in the medial aspect? You can see medially, you can see this blue bone, and this blue bone was the palatine bone. So medially, you will have the perpendicular plate of palatine bone with both its orbital and the sphenoidal processes, which is lining or which is bounding the pterygopalatine fossa from its medial aspect. Now we come to the lateral aspect. What is lateral aspect? This entire fissure-like thing which is opening laterally into which fossa? Into the infratemporal fossa. If you pass a probe through the pterygopalatine fossa, you will come out through the pterygomaxillary fissure. This is the outline of the pterygomaxillary fissure, which is between the pterygoid plates and the maxilla bone. So that is why this fissure is called as the pterygomaxillary fissure. And through this pterygomaxillary fissure, the lateral wall is open. And where it is open into the infratemporal fossa. So laterally, it opens into the infratemporal fossa through the pterygomaxillary fissure, which I've just described. This is the outline of the pterygomaxillary fissure, which is between the pterygoid plates and the maxilla bone. Now coming to the superior aspect. Now what is bounding it superiorly? In this picture, this was the dissected part of the same skeletal framework of the skull. So you can see this, if it is cut, the pterygoid plates are also cut into deeper portions. So you can see this is the body of sphenoid. So the body of sphenoid forms the roof of the pterygopalatine fossa or the superior wall. So the roof will be formed by the undersurface of the body of sphenoid bone. Now coming to the inferior aspect. If you look into the inferior aspect, you will come to know that inferiorly this pterygopalatine fossa is closed. How it is closed? It is closed by the fusion of perpendicular plate of palatine bone and the maxilla bone. So you can see this is the perpendicular plate of palatine bone and the maxilla bone together, they fuse and they close the pterygopalatine fossa inferiorly. So these are the boundaries: anterior, posterior, medial, lateral, superior and inferior boundary of the pterygopalatine fossa. Now let's see the same diagrammatic representation of all these walls in the actual skull. So if you see, this is the anterior, posterior part, the superior and the inferior. This is a zygomatic arch. So where will you look for the pterygopalatine fossa? You look for the pterygopalatine fossa over here onto the lateral aspect of the skull. Now this is a zygomatic arch. Above it will be the temporal fossa. Below it will be the infratemporal region. So this is the infratemporal region. So you can see communicating to the infratemporal region through its lateral wall, which is open wall, is a pterygomaxillary fissure. How will you locate for pterygomaxillary fissure? You will look for the pterygomaxillary fissure between the pterygoid plates and the maxilla bone. So through this fissure, pterygomaxillary fissure, the pterygopalatine fossa is communicating with the infratemporal region. So once we have looked for this pterygomaxillary fissure, we know now the pointer is at the medial wall, which is formed by the palatine bone. The superior over here will be formed by the undersurface of the body of sphenoid. This is the posterior part, posterior wall, which will be formed by the roots of the pterygoid process and the adjoining greater wing of sphenoid portion. The anterior wall will be formed by this maxilla bone, and inferiorly you can see this portion which is coming, which is the palatine bone and fusion of the palatine bone perpendicular plate with the maxilla, which fuses this pterygopalatine fossa inferiorly. So this is how actually in the bone you will the pterygopalatine fossa will appear. So we are done with the boundaries of pterygopalatine fossa. By now you are able to locate the pterygopalatine fossa on your own. Now, as I've told you, this pterygopalatine fossa is communicating, although it's a very small space, but through its fissures, through its foramina, it is going to communicate with other adjoining areas of the skull. So let us see the communications now. So now this is the pterygopalatine fossa. One communication that I've just described was this communication through the pterygomaxillary fissure. It was communicating with which fossa? It was communicating with the infratemporal fossa. And one more I've told you, because this is just behind and below the apex of orbit. And what is this fissure over here in the anterosuperior wall of the pterygopalatine fossa? This is the inferior orbital fissure, which we did in the orbit. So through this inferior orbital fissure, it is going to communicate with the orbit, right? And then there are certain foramina which you can see in the detailed version. There are foramen rotundum, the pterygoid canal, and the palatovaginal canal, which is on the posterior wall of the pterygopalatine fossa. Then one foramina you can see over here in the medial wall. This is the sphenopalatine foramina, and through the sphenopalatine foramina, it is going to communicate with the nasal cavity. So by this picture in your mind, and considering the fact that the pterygopalatine fossa is comparable to a pyramid, which is an inverted pyramid with a base above and the apex below. So now the communications are in the posterior wall. This is the posterior wall of the pterygopalatine fossa. So look into the posterior wall now. Now you can see there are 3 openings, 1, 2, and 3 openings into the posterior wall of the pterygopalatine fossa. So when if we see the uppermost, this is the pharyngeal canal, which is also called as the palatovaginal canal. Through this, it is going to communicate with the nasopharynx. Through foramen rotundum, it is going to communicate with the middle cranial fossa. And the last one is the pterygoid canal, which is going to open into the base of skull. Through this, the pterygopalatine fossa will communicate to the base of skull. So this is the foramen rotundum communicating with the middle cranial fossa. And what passes through it? The maxillary nerve passes through it. The pterygoid canal, and through pterygoid canal, where will it communicate? It will communicate to the base of skull. And what passes through it? The pterygoid nerves and vessels passes through it. And the last one is the pharyngeal canal, what passes, which is also called as the palatovaginal canal, and what passes into it? The pharyngeal vessels and nerve. And through this communication, the pterygopalatine fossa will communicate posteriorly into the nasopharynx. So if the connections, communications, and the boundary of pterygo, it's not an easy topic, so you will have to revise it again and again. So if we simplify this, these walls in an example of a pyramidal structure. So this is the superior, medial, and the lateral and inferior aspect of this pyramidal aspect of the pterygopalatine fossa. Then this wall is the, suppose this is the posterior wall. So you can see these 3 foramina, the foramen rotundum, the pterygoid canal, also called as the Vedian canal, and the pharyngeal canal or the palatovaginal canal. So these, through them, the pterygopalatine fossa is communicating with the middle cranial fossa, with the base of skull, and with the nasopharynx through the palatovaginal or the pharyngeal canal, which is represented by these 3 posterior openings into the posterior wall of pterygopalatine fossa. So we'll go slowly. seeing the communications and openings with their contents through each wall of pterygopalatine fossa. So we are done with the posterior wall now. Now this part is little difficult to understand, so we'll again reinforce the understanding by looking into the base of skull. This is the base of skull, and you can see this is the hard palate, this is the vomer bone, and so this is the undersurface of the base of skull. So we were talking about some pterygoid canal. The rest of the foramina, foramen rotundum, is easier to identify, but how to locate for this pterygoid canal? This over here, you can see this is the pterygoid. These are the pterygoid processes, the pterygoid plates. So over here in the, if you look into the medial pterygoid plate, the medial pterygoid plate superiorly is spanning out, and between them there is a entrance to a canal, and this is the pterygoid canal. Now look into the vicinity of the pterygoid canal, what all structures are there. There is the foramen ovale, and over here is the foramen lacerum. In the foramen lacerum, you have the internal carotid artery, and through them passes the sympathetic plexus nerves around the internal carotid artery, which is a deep petrosal nerve, which when joins the greater petrosal nerve forms the nerve of pterygoid canal, and then that nerve of pterygoid canal enters into this pterygoid canal. Right, so how will you locate for this pterygoid canal? This is the location of pterygoid canal. You have to look for the medial pterygoid plate, and superiorly, if you see, it is between them is the pterygoid canal. So if you have a skull, you just pass a probe through this pterygoid canal. Where will you enter? You will enter into the pterygopalatine fossa. So through this, it is communicating with the base of skull through the pterygoid canal. To make it further simpler, let us see in this picture. This is a sagittal section through the nasal cavity and the oral cavity. So into the posterior part over here, you can see this is the area of the pterygopalatine fossa, and you can see this is the pterygoid canal I was talking about. This is that pterygoid canal which contains the nerve of pterygoid canal, and this nerve of pterygoid canal was formed by the fusion of, by the joining of the greater or the superficial petrosal nerve when it joins the sympathetic plexus around the internal carotid artery. These two nerves, when they join, they form this nerve to pterygoid canal, and this nerve to pterygoid canal is coming into the relation of which fossa? The pterygopalatine fossa. So this is that pterygoid canal which I was talking about. So this is that posterior wall of the pterygopalatine fossa, which through which the posterior opening is the pterygoid canal, and this is that foramen rotundum, and this is that pharyngeal canal or the palato-vaginal canal. So all these three in the relation of the posterior wall is seen over here. So we are done with the communication of the posterior wall of pterygopalatine fossa. These were the three. Now coming on to the medial wall. Now this is the medial wall of the pterygopalatine fossa, and you can see a small foramina over here. This is the sphenopalatine foramina. Simplify it in this pyramidal aspect of the pterygopalatine fossa. Now this is the medial wall. So you can see in the medial wall, this is the sphenopalatine foramina through which the pterygopalatine fossa will communicate with the nasal cavity, and the sphenopalatine foramina will transmit nasopalatine vessels and nerve, and it will communicate with the nasal cavity over here. So in this picture again, if we see this, this is the communication through the medial wall, which is into the nasal cavity. Now coming to the lateral wall. The lateral wall is simpler because laterally the pterygopalatine fossa is open. So pterygopalatine fossa is open laterally through this pterygomaxillary fissure, and it opens into the infratemporal fossa. And in this picture also we can see this is the lateral wall. So in the lateral wall, this is the pterygomaxillary fissure through which it will communicate with the infratemporal region. Now let's see what is there inferiorly. Inferiorly at the apex of the pterygopalatine fossa, there is opening of greater palatine canal. So this is the greater palatine canal, which then further divides into anterior and posterior divisions. Through this greater palatine canal passes the greater and lesser palatine vessels and nerves. So this is that palatine canal which is at the apex of the pterygopalatine fossa. So through this, the pterygopalatine canal is going to open into the oral cavity, supplying the hard palate. So this, if we compare the greater palatine canal over here through the apex of the pterygopalatine fossa, this is that greater palatine canal which divides into anterior and posterior, through which passes the greater palatine nerves and lesser palatine nerves. So this is the greater and the lesser palatine nerves which is passing through the apex, or this canal is passing through the apex of pterygopalatine fossa. So we have seen many communications of the pterygopalatine fossa till inferiorly, and the pterygomaxillary fissure, what passes through them is the third part of maxillary artery, the maxillary nerve, posterior superior alveolar nerves and vessels, and pterygoid venous plexuses. Now coming to the anterosuperior aspect. So this is the anterosuperior aspect of this pterygopalatine fossa, and this fissure is called as the inferior orbital fissure. So through this inferior orbital fissure, the pterygopalatine fossa will communicate into the orbit, and you know inferior orbital fissure opens where? Into the floor of the orbits. So in this picture, this is a superior aspect, so you can see this is that inferior orbital fissure through which it will communicate anteriorly with the floor of the orbit. So we have seen that through two fissures, that were inferior orbital fissure and pterygomaxillary fissure, and through all these phenomena, the pterygopalatine fossa, such a small space, is communicating with the orbit, it's communicating with the nasal cavity, it's communicating with the base of skull, middle cranial fossa, to the pharynx, nasopharynx, to the oral cavity or the hard palate. So these are all communications and openings of the pterygopalatine fossa. To sum it up, that we have seen the communications in the posterior wall, they were the foramen rotundum, the pterygoid canal, the pharyngeal canal or the palatovaginal canal in the posterior wall. In the medial wall was this sphenopalatine foramen, and in the at the apex of the fossa or inferiorly, it was this greater palatine canal. In the lateral wall, this was a pterygomaxillary fissure, and anterosuperiorly, this was the inferior orbital fissure. So these are the openings in the pterygopalatine fossa. These openings are communicating through these openings. They are communicating with the areas around the skull. That is, the foramen rotundum was the foramen rotundum. Through foramen rotundum, it was communicating with the middle cranial fossa, through pterygoid canal communicating with the base of skull, and through the pharyngeal or the palatovaginal canal communicating with the nasopharynx, through sphenopalatine to the nasal cavity, and communicating to the oral cavity or hard palate through greater palatine canals, through pterygomaxillary fissure communicating with infratemporal fossa, and with the inferior orbital fissure communicating with the orbit. I am revising again and again because it's a difficult topic, and once you revise it, you will not be able to understand it. And these are the contents through each foramina, the foramen maxillary nerve through rotundum, and these many structures which we have already discussed. What were the contents that were passing through these foramina? So we are done with the openings and communications of the pterygopalatine fossa. So now coming to the very important part, the contents of the pterygopalatine fossa. These are the contents of the pterygopalatine fossa. This is the pterygopalatine fossa. So we have the maxillary nerve, we have the pterygopalatine ganglion, we have a nerve that we just described, that was the Vidian's nerve, or the nerve of the pterygoid canal, and the third part of maxillary artery, which are there in the pterygopalatine fossa. Now coming to the maxillary nerve first, we'll describe this nerve under these headings. And let us see first, this is the trigeminal ganglion, which is the cranial nerve fifth. We all know that it divides into ophthalmic division, maxillary division, and mandibular division. Mandibular division you have already covered. Ophthalmic division we covered during the orbit. Now we are left with the second division, which is the maxillary division of the trigeminal nerve. So let's see the course of this maxillary nerve. And we know that it passes through foramen rotundum. This was the middle cranial cavity area, and it passes through the foramen rotundum. When it passes through the foramen rotundum, where it will enter, this is the base of the sphenoid bone. So this is over here below it. This is all pterygopalatine fossa area. So this is the pterygopalatine fossa area. So this is the pterygopalatine ganglion, which is over here in the pterygopalatine fossa. So now let's see the maxillary nerve. The maxillary nerve arises from the second division of the trigeminal nerve, and it's a purely sensory type of the nerve. Now let's see the course of this maxillary nerve. It starts from the trigeminal ganglion. It is the second division of the trigeminal ganglion. So this is the maxillary nerve from the trigeminal ganglion. It passes through the foramen rotundum. This is the foramen rotundum. It passes through the foramen rotundum, and through foramen rotundum, now it has entered into the pterygopalatine fossa. It has entered into the pterygopalatine fossa. You can see there are two ganglionic branches through which it is connected to the pterygopalatine ganglion. So these are the two ganglionic branches of the maxillary nerve, which connects it to the pterygopalatine ganglion, which is also situated in the pterygopalatine fossa. After that, the maxillary nerve will give off some branches, and then in the pterygopalatine fossa, and then it will enter through the inferior orbital fissure, and through inferior orbital fissure, it will enter where? It will enter into the orbit. So the inferior orbital fissure will continue into inferior orbital canal in the groove, and finally it will come out through the infraorbital foramen in the form of infraorbital nerve. And then on the face, they will divide into three branches and will supply the area of the face adjacent to the infraorbital foramen. So this is the maxillary nerve, the course of maxillary nerve, which I've just described. So through before it reaches the foramen rotundum, it will be related to the wall of the cavernous sinus also. Then through foramen rotundum reaches the pterygopalatine fossa, and then inferior orbital fissure, and finally through infraorbital foramen appears in the form of infraorbital nerve, continues as infraorbital nerve when it has come out from the infraorbital foramina. And on the face, it divides into these branches: palpebral, nasal, and superior labial branches. So now coming to the branching of maxillary nerve. So in the middle cranial fossa, this is the middle cranial fossa just before the foramen rotundum. This is all area of the middle cranial fossa. In the middle cranial fossa, this is the meningeal, the branch which is given in the middle cranial fossa. This is the meningeal branch which is going to supply the dura mater. In the pterygopalatine fossa, when it crosses the foramen rotundum, it has now reached the pterygopalatine fossa. So in the pterygopalatine fossa, it is going to give posterior superior alveolar branch. This is a very important branch because it is going to supply the alveoli, and this is the nerve which is required to be blocked when you are dealing with the molars. Then is the zygomatic nerve. This is the zygomatic nerve, which is also given in the pterygopalatine fossa. Then along with these two nerves, there are ganglionic branches which is given by the maxillary nerve, which reaches the pterygopalatine ganglion. Now in the infraorbital canal, now we have reached the infraorbital canal. In the infraorbital canal, it will give middle superior alveolar branch. You can see this is the middle superior alveolar branch in the infraorbital canal, and then again it will give another branch, the anterior superior alveolar. So all the alveolar process and the tooth, the posterior superior, middle, and the anterior superior alveolar has been taken care of. Now on the face, it will divide into infraorbital, inferior palpebral, and superior labial branch when it has come out through the infraorbital foramen onto the face. So this in a nutshell is the branching pattern from the middle cranial fossa, the meningeal branch. In the pterygopalatine fossa, the ganglionic branch which were connecting it to the pterygopalatine ganglion, the zygomatic nerve which further divides into zygomaticotemporal and zygomaticofacial. the posterior superior alveolar. In the infraorbital canal, it gives only two branches, the middle superior and anterior superior alveolar nerve, and onto the face, the three terminal branches of the infraorbital nerve, that is the palpebral, nasal, and superior labial. So these are the distribution which I've just described into the which is distribution of the maxillary nerve of each branch. So the superior dental plexus is formed by this posterior posterior superior alveolar nerve, and this is going to supply the upper molar teeth. So upper molar teeth and the adjoining gums will be supplied by the posterior superior alveolar nerve. So this posterior superior alveolar nerve, because they are supplying the upper molar, so any anesthesia, any operative procedure or any intervention which is required or any tooth extraction procedure which is required in the upper molar, so you will need to anesthetize these upper molars and the associated buccal mucosa, which will be achieved by blocking which nerve? It will be achieved by blocking the posterior superior alveolar nerve. So this is called as the posterior superior alveolar nerve block. So this is how the posterior superior alveolar nerve block is given. The anesthesia is given through the syringe. Anesthetic fluid is infiltrated, and this is the site where you give for the posterior superior alveolar nerve. The zygomatic nerve that is also coming into the from the pterygopalatine fossa, the branch. The zygomatico divides into zygomatico-temporal and zygomatico-facial. The zygomatico-temporal is important because it will convey the parasympathetic supply to the lacrimal gland also, and will supply the temporal fossa and the skin of the temple region, whereas zygomatico-facial supply the skin over the cheek region. Infratemporal, in the infratemporal groove and the canal, these were the two middle and the middle and the anterior superior alveolar nerve. So remember, the upper premolars will be supplied by the middle superior alveolar nerve, and the anterior superior alveolar nerve is going to supply the upper canine and the incisor tooth and the adjoining gums, and with the nasal branch also going to supply the floor of the nose. So the molars supplied by the posterior superior alveolar, the premolars, upper premolar supplied by the middle superior alveolar, and the anterior most, that is the upper canine and incisor tooth, are supplied by the anterior superior alveolar nerve. So only those nerves are need to be blocked when prior to giving the anesthetic for the tooth extraction or any intervention in that particular area. So this is that anatomical basis of anesthesia, the nerve blocks. So remember, from the maxillary nerve, the entire alveolar process is being supplied through these three branches. The lower alveolar process was supplied by the mandibular nerve, but the upper alveolar process, or the tooth and the gums, are supplied by the maxillary nerve. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the distribution of the posterior superior alveolar nerve to the molars, representation of middle superior alveolar nerve for the premolars, and for the canine and incisor, the anterior superior alveolar nerve. And this is how the anesthesia is being given for the posterior superior alveolar nerve block, for the middle superior alveolar nerve block, and for the anterior superior alveolar nerve block. Now we come to the important topic, that is the pterygopalatine ganglion. So we are done with this. So we know where is the pterygopalatine fossa. So now we understand where is in this pterygopalatine fossa the one important content, that is the pterygopalatine ganglion, how it is situated, how it is placed, and what are its roots, connections, and branches. So it is a parasympathetic ganglion which is deeply placed in the pterygopalatine fossa, and it is suspended through the ganglionic branches from the maxillary nerve. So this is the maxillary nerve. So this would be the foramen rotundum. This is a trigeminal ganglion. From here, the maxillary nerve is entering into the pterygopalatine fossa. So through these two ganglionic branches, it is connected to the pterygopalatine ganglion. It is largest of the 4 parasympathetic ganglia. One of the parasympathetic ganglia which we have covered was the ciliary ganglion when we did the orbit. So this is the largest among all. So it is formed by the cell bodies of the postganglionic neurons associated with the parasympathetic supply fibers of facial nerve carried by the greater petrosal nerve and the nerve of pterygoid canal. I'll come to this point in the subsequent slide. So we have seen topographically it is related to, it is adjacent to the maxillary nerve, it is suspended through the maxillary nerve. So it is topographically related to the maxillary nerve, but functionally, because it is carrying the parasympathetic component from the facial nerve, so functionally it is related to the facial nerve, the greater petrosal branch of the facial nerve. Location, it is in the superior part of the pterygopalatine fossa, just below the maxillary nerve, through which it is suspended by the ganglionic branches, and it is closer to the medial wall of the pterygopalatine fossa, so that's why it is closer to the sphenopalatine foramina, and it's just in front of the pterygoid canal. This was that pterygoid canal that we were talking about, which I had showed you from the base of the skull as well, the opening, the entrance into the pterygopalatine canal, pterygoid canal. Now, the pterygopalatine ganglion has 3 roots: the parasympathetic motor root, the sympathetic, and the sensory roots. Now, coming to the parasympathetic root, remember, as we did in the ciliary ganglion as also, the parasympathetic roots are secretomotor, that is a motor root. The sympathetic ones are vasomotor, and sensory root is carrying the sensations. So, in this picture, let's understand first, this is the pterygopalatine ganglion. This is the maxillary nerve, and this foramina is the foramen rotundum. Through this, maxillary nerve has entered in the pterygopalatine fossa. These are the 2 ganglionic branches from the maxillary nerve, which is suspending the pterygopalatine fossa, pterygopalatine ganglion. These are the branches of pterygopalatine ganglion. Now, what is this canal? This is the pterygoid canal, because in the location we studied that the pterygopalatine ganglion is just in front of the pterygoid canal. This is a posterior wall of the pterygopalatine fossa. What is contained in the pterygoid canal? Pterygoid canal contains nerve of pterygoid canal. And how this nerve of pterygoid canal formed? It is formed by joining of the greater petrosal nerve, which is from the facial nerve, when it joins the plexus around the internal sympathetic plexus around the internal carotid artery, which is called as the deep petrosal nerve. This is a deep petrosal nerve which is coming out from the internal carotid artery plexus. When this joins the greater petrosal nerve, which is from the 7th nerve, when they join, they form nerve to pterygoid canal and they enter into the pterygoid canal. So this is the pterygoid canal with the nerve to pterygoid canal. Now this nerve to pterygoid canal is communicating with the pterygopalatine ganglion. Now let's see about what is there above the maxillary nerve. The maxillary nerve gives off a branch we know is the zygomatic nerve. The zygomatic nerve then divides into zygomaticofacial and zygomaticotemporal. So this is a zygomaticotemporal nerve. It's branch of the zygomaticotemporal nerve. And this is the lacrimal gland. By this knowledge of this picture, now let's see how the parasympathetic motor root is acting. So the preganglionic fibers will arise from the lacrymatory nucleus of the lower pons. From there, the preganglionic fibers, this is the preganglionic fibers, and this preganglionic fibers, which is carried through the greater petrosal nerve, will reach the pterygopalatine ganglion, and in the pterygopalatine ganglion, they are going to synapse. And synapse, and then the postganglionic fibers will then supply these many areas. It will supply the lacrimal gland, it will supply the nasal gland, palatine glands, pharyngeal glands, and minor salivary glands. So remember, what are these structures? These are all the communications through the pterygopalatine fossa. Remember when we did, they were through the orbit, lacrimal, the nasal cavity, through it will communicate with the nasal gland, through the greater palatine canal, it will reach the palatine glands, through the pharyngeal canal, it will reach the pharyngeal glands, and through the orbit, these many structures it will supply. So let's see the motor root in this schematic representation. So in the pons, you have the lacrymatory nucleus. From the lacrymatory nucleus, the preganglionic fibers will enter into the nervus intermedius, which is the sensory root of the facial nerve. From the sensory root of the facial nerve, it will reach the geniculate ganglion of the facial nerve. This is the complete parasympathetic motor route chart, flow chart that you should remember. From the geniculate ganglion facial nerve, it will enter into the greater petrosal nerve. So functionally related to the facial nerve, right? So this is the greater petrosal nerve. The greater petrosal nerve then joins the deep petrosal nerve and forms the nerve of pterygoid canal. So the nerve of pterygoid canal, through that it is going to synapse in the pterygopalatine ganglion, and after this the postganglionic fibers through the zygomatic nerve, through its branch of zygomaticotemporal nerve, will reach where? It will reach into the lacrimal nerve, and through lacrimal nerve it is going to supply the lacrimal gland. So just now we have done the parasympathetic secretomotor pathway of the lacrimal gland. So this is how the lacrimal gland will pour its secretion. It will be secretomotor to it. So not only it supplies the lacrimal gland, it supplies rest other structures also. What are those structures? So first was the lacrimal gland. And through this nasopalatine branch, remember it was coming out through the sphenopalatine foramen. So through that, it is going to supply the nasal glands and will cause secretion to them because it's secretomotor. Through the greater palatine canal, it will reach the branch of greater palatine nerve and lesser palatine nerve. These are the greater and lesser palatine nerve branches from the pterygopalatine ganglion. So through them, they are going to supply the palatine glands and will leads to its secretion. The last will be through the pharyngeal nerve, which was coming from the pharyngeal canal or the palatovaginal canal. So from there, it is going to supply the pharyngeal gland. So these are the parasympathetic motor route of the secretomotor route of the pterygopalatine ganglion. So any ganglion, all the four ganglion, you have to do the connections and the routes. So this is a simplified version of what we have discussed right now. So right from the pons lacrimetry nucleus, the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers arises into the facial nerve, its sensory route, to the geniculate ganglion of the facial nerve, which reaches the greater petrosal branch of the facial nerve, which is the greater petrosal nerve. The greater petrosal nerve joins the deep petrosal nerve to form the nerve of pterygoid canal, which enters into the pterygopalatine ganglion. So from here to here, this is all preganglionic fibers. Now from the synapse, the postganglionic fibers through maxillary nerve, its zygomatic branch, its zygomaticotemporal branch, joining the lacrimal nerve, supplies the lacrimal gland. Through nasopalatine nerve, it's going to supply the nasal glands. Through greater palatine, lesser palatine nerves, it is going to supply the palatine glands. And through pharyngeal nerve, it's going to supply the pharyngeal glands. Yes, it is very difficult part, but you have to revise it again and again through this flowchart manner. And remember, once you get a question, you have to make this flowchart of the motor route, parasympathetic motor route. So now the secretions of all these glands are taken care of by the pterygopalatine ganglion. Now coming to the sympathetic route. Sympathetic route, remember, is for the vasomotor to the mucous membrane of all these areas. So they arise from the internal carotid artery nerves, plexus around it, and from there it passes without any synapse into the pterygopalatine fossa and is going to supply to the related mucous membrane of nose, palate, and nasopharynx area. So this is the sympathetic route. So it will start from the superior cervical ganglion, plexus around the internal carotid artery, then joins the deep petrosal nerve. The deep petrosal nerve, then when joins the greater petrosal nerve, forms the nerve to pterygoid canal. Yahan tak pathway similar hai till the pterygoid canal. Only thing is it is carried through the deep petrosal. And then you can see the fibers are are traversing without any synapse, the sympathetic route. And then they become from here they will be supplying the related area and of the mucous membrane of the nose, palate, and nasopharynx directly. So remember, one thing was common, that is the union of deep petrosal nerve and the greater petrosal nerve, both in the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So this is what the great petrosal and the deep petrosal nerve appears, and this is the pterygoid canal, now which contains the nerve to pterygoid canal. From this much pathway was common to both. Only thing is the origin from the lacrimetry nucleus and facial nerve was in the parasympathetic, and from the internal carotid plexus was for the sympathetic route. Now, sensory root is derived from the maxillary nerve and it passed without any relay in the ganglion. So this is a nutshell of the three roots of the pterygopalatine ganglion. Now coming to the branches of pterygopalatine ganglion. Now the branches of pterygopalatine ganglion will be the orbital branch. Through the orbital branch, this is the orbital branch you can see in this picture. Through the orbital branch, it is going to enter into the, through inferior orbital fissure, it is going to enter into the orbit. Then the second is the palatine branches. The palatine branches were greater palatine or anterior palatine and the lesser palatine or the posterior palatine. So this passes through the palatine, greater palatine canal, palatine canals. So if you remember the pterygopalatine fossa, its communication, its boundaries and openings, you will be able to know the branches also. So orbital branch, the palatine branch through the palatine canal, then the nasal branches, the posterior superior, lateral nasal, and the long nasopalatine, the long sphenopalatine. So through the sphenopalatine foramina, these are the nasal branches which are coming from the pterygopalatine fossa. And the pharyngeal branch will be into the palatovaginal, through the palatovaginal canal. So again, this is that same diagram for the branches of pterygopalatine ganglion. So we are done with the location, the roots, branches of pterygopalatine ganglion and connections of pterygopalatine ganglion. So the distribution through these branches will be through the orbital branch, which is going to supply it will enter the orbit, will supply that region. Mucous membrane of palate, palatine tonsil, nasal cavity through the lesser and greater palatine. The mucous membrane of the nasal mucosa through these branches, and the roof of mucous membrane of the nasopharynx through the pharyngeal branch. So now the last part, which is maxillary artery, this has already been covered to you. So I'm just going to show you the diagram of this maxillary artery, its various branches. So this was the major branch from the external carotid artery and it passes through the infratemporal fossa, enters the pterygopalatine fossa through the pterygomaxillary fissure. Infratemporal region, you have already covered the maxillary artery and the branches of the maxillary artery. These are the branches that you should be thorough with from the first part, second and the third parts of the maxillary artery. So the muscular branches from the second part, these are from the first part and these are from the third part. So these branches should be clear to you and has already been covered previously. So now we are at the end of our lecture today. So by the end of this lecture, you should be able to describe the pterygopalatine fossa pterygopalatine ganglion. It will be pterygopalatine ganglion with its connections and branches. And you should be able to write the anatomical basis of the posterior superior alveolar nerve block in tooth extraction. This is a question that I've given to you, that is what should come over here. The parasympathetic motor route of the pterygopalatine ganglion should start from which point? So these are the questions. Geniculate ganglion of facial nerve will be relaying into through which nerve and through which nerve it will reach the lacrimal gland. These are the questions. Think over it and see, this is the answer. It started from the lacrimetrial nucleus and it joins the greater petrosal nerve and through the maxillary nerve branch zygomatic nerve, through zygomaticotemporal and lacrimal nerve it reaches the lacrimal gland. So these are the this is a complete flow chart of the parasympathetic motor route. Thank you.